How money works. So we start with the rule of 72 to illustrate how money really works. So how money works. Okay. So the rule of 72 essentially says you take 72 divided by the rate of return equals number of years for money to double. Okay, it's that simple. So we start with something really simple. Again, this is called the rule of 72 divided by the rate of return equals the number of years it takes for the money to double. For example, if we take 2% and divide it by 72, it will take 36 years for the money to double. If we take 72 and divide it by 6%, it will take 12 years for our money to double. If we take 12%, we take 72 divided by 12%, it will take 6 years for our money to double. So if you're earning um, these percentages here at 2, 6, and 12, it translates into 36 years, 12 years, and 6 years to double. So the concept is heavily used in banking as well. So if we take all of this that we're talking about and translate it to banking, what happens? You take 10K, we walk it to the bank, and we give it to Mr. Banker. Okay. Mr. Banker's not going to sit on that cash, but he'll say, yeah, thank you very much. He'll turn around and pay us probably 2% at most if we open a CD. And so in roughly 36 years, as we just saw here, 36 years, that same 36 years here, our money would essentially turn from 10K to 20K. All right, so we think we're pretty happy, but what is the bank going to do? They're going to loan that money out in personal loan. They can possibly loan out for somebody to go buy a car, or maybe they can loan it out in form of issuing a credit card for people to use and run up charges on it, and they end up owing the bank money. So how much do banks typically charge? Well, our little 2% on a conservative side, our banker will probably take and charge us roughly 12%. So this same 12% here is basically going to double every 2 years. So every 6 years, rather. So 6 years later, our 10K is now 20K. 6 years to 12 years, 20K is now become 40K. To 18 year later, it's become 80K. And 24 years later, it's 160K. And then 30 years later, that money is now 320K. And then finally, 36, which is equivalent to what we just did here. The total sum that the bank has made is roughly 640K. Not bad for taking our 10K and turn around and made off pretty good on it. So we know what the bank does with our money. So the question becomes one of, are we the bank or are we the borrower? Well, we depends on which side we're on. Um, so we're going to talk next about risks. So when it comes to risk relating to money, growth, and risks, there's person A and person B. Person A is given 10K, person B taking 10K. In year one, they invest the money, year one, and their growth went up 50%. Year two, their growth is up down 50%. So what happens? Um, their money grew to 15K year one, but year two, it dropped by 50%, so it dropped 7,500. So they ended up with 7,500 at the end of year two. Person B, on the other end, just sat on his hand and didn't do anything. So year one, he got 0. Year two, year one, he got 0. Um, year two, he got 0%. So what did he get in year one? Well, he still got his 10K. Okay. Year two, because he didn't do anything, he still got his 10K. So ultimately, in the end, he still shows up with 10K, which shows you the power of zero. Okay, power of zero. How does that translate into what we're going to talk about? Well, because do the math. Look at this. This guy's it's all over, up and down. Where this guy just held at zero, and still end up with pretty good sum of money. 10K versus 7,500. I'll take 10K. Um, so this shows the volatility risk. Sometimes losses hurt more than the gain. So um, if we look at how people normally invest and grow money, um, so how we grow money, grow money. There's three ways. There's basically fixed, there's variable, and there's the indexed or leverage. Okay, so we're going to look at exactly what all of these different um, ways mean. So fix, basically, if we look at a bar graph over dollar and time here, it's basically pretty low interest rate, just like over time, like a CD, for example. It just grows, but slow. Variable, things like stocks, mutual funds, 401ks, ETFs, they experience up and down. So if we were to look at a bar graph, again, dollar over time, we see it kind of going up all over the map. So depends on where you need that money. That money could be up or could be down, whatever. Very risky, very volatile. Or we can invest it in a leveraged way, meaning market goes up, it goes up with it, but market start coming down, it locks. But when markets start going up again, it goes up with it. So it's like this. It's not participating on the downturn, It's basically up, up, and up. So there's a lock point here, here, and here. So over time, your money is always in the growth trajectory. Okay. So one other thing that we need to talk about, which is called the wealth formula. What is the wealth formula? It's very simple. We look at assets, accumulated minus expenses minus taxes, okay, equals net worth. Okay. Now, creating asset, it just, creating wealth isn't just about assets, the asset minus expenses minus taxes. So let's say you have uh, $1 million here. You have to you have to take into account and factor in your expenses, and you have to factor in your taxes in order to come up with a sum of net worth. So when we sit with clients, we want to focus on three things. We want to reduce debt, because we just learned up here how debt can end up costing us lots and lots of money. So we want to reduce debt, reduction of debt. We also want to talk about growing assets efficiently. And we also want to make sure that we're structuring monies to reduce risks and taxes. Okay. So in the next in the next conversation, we'll talk about the different tax buckets.